everyone, and welcome to Metagame Mastery, where it's not just about what the card does, but how it impacts the game. Guilds of Ravnica pre-release is this weekend, and that means we're going to be cracking packs, building sealed decks, and later on, we'll be doing some drafting. So let's take a look at the limited archetypes, starting with Izzet Spellslinger. If you enjoy this content, click that subscribe button so you get access to all our latest videos, and if you're looking to pre-order your booster box of Guilds of Ravnica, check out our Amazon affiliate link in the description below. Without further ado, big time! Go time! Let's go. Now we're going to go based off of rarity here, because the commons are the ones that you're going to see the most in your packs. So as you can see here, the Izzet specific mechanic is Jumpstart, which is you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other's cost, then exile this card. It's going to be on instants and sorceries, and as the name of the video might suggest, the goal of this deck is to cast lots and instants of sorceries, much more so than you typically see in a sealed or draft deck. This card, for example, Sonic Assault, is 3 CMC, and it taps a creature at instant speed and deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. That's actually not bad. It's a good tempo play, slows down your opponent, and gets a shock in the process. Not to mention adding an instant or sorcery for your other synergies, which we will be looking at later in this video. Maximize Altitude is 1 blue mana for a sorcery. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn, and has Jumpstart. So this card's great, getting a jump effect, helping you to push damage through. Maximize Velocity is 1 red mana for a sorcery. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. Also allowing us to ramp up our storm count, get those instant and sorcery synergies that we'll be looking at later in the video at only 1 mana. Radical Idea is 2 CMC for an instant, draw a card, and it has Jumpstart. So what I like about this card is it's basically 4 mana, draw 2, discard 1. It replaces itself, and it puts you in a position to rack up your storm count, which is something you're really going to be looking to do in this deck archetype. Direct Current is 3 CMC, 1 colorless red for a sorcery. It deals 2 damage to any target with Jumpstart. So this is an overpriced shock, obviously, but it's a shock that you get to use twice, maybe discarding extra lands that you've drawn into your hand in order to get additional removal against your opponent's creatures. And what you'll find is, as we go over the various archetypes, there's a lot of low toughness creatures in this format, making this a very good removal card. Gravitic Punch is the last Jumpstart card we're going to be looking at common. It's 4 CMC, 3 colorless and a red for a sorcery. Target creature control deals damage equal to its power to target player. What I like about this card is it's a way to break up board stalls and at the same time push through extra damage to finish your opponent off. All the while, we're building up those instant and sorcery triggers as well. Hypothesizel may be the most powerful card at common for this build. It's 5 CMC, 3 colorless, blue and a red for an instant, draw 2 cards, then you may discard a non-land card. When you do, it deals 4 damage to target creature. So at minimum, this card replaces itself and you get some card quality control. If you discard one of your Jumpstart cards, it's still like you're gaining virtual card advantage. And then at the same time, it is removal on top of all that. This is going to do a whole lot for you in this build. Fire Urchin is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a red for a 1/3 elemental with trample. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So sort of a mini prowess effect. As you can imagine, it doesn't take much for this to quickly become above curve and attack in for more than what you initially paid for it. Goblin Electromancer is 2 CMC, a blue and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Wizard. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. So in a deck, in an archetype where you're trying to push through way more instants and sorceries as you normally would in Limited, this is going to be pivotal because not only is it mana ramp for that strategy, but it allows you to pop off extra instant and sorceries in a single turn, and that way the value accumulates the more instants and sorceries you're able to do in that turn. Piston Fist Cyclops is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, and 2 hybrid Izzet for a 4/3 Cyclops with Defender. As long as you've cast an instant or sorcery spell, he attacks as though he didn't have Defender. So this is strictly above curve in this strategy, and that's solid. 4/3 with Defender, but if you have instant or sorcery that you're looking to pop off, maybe maximize his velocity or maximize his altitude, this guy gets really sick really fast. He's going to be a great piece to make this deck go. Leapfrog is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and blue for a 3/1 frog. And he has flying as long as you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. So this is just a good card. In this deck, you can reliably give it evasion and push through some extra damage. Command the Storm is 5 CMC, 4 colorless, and a red for an instant. It deals 5 damage to target creature. Okay, that's not great economy, but having a removal spell that can hit just about anything in the format is still a good option in Limited. Pass Wall Adept is 2 CMC, 1 colorless and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard. You can pay 2 colorless and a blue, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. Great way for you to push through damage with your Cyclops or really any other creature late game. Capture Sphere is 4 CMC, 3 colorless, and a blue for an enchantment aura with flash. Enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, you tap that creature, and that creature doesn't untap during its control step. So we're getting an instant speed claustrophobia. That's still really good removal in Limited. Be sure to snatch this one up when you see it. Disdainful Stroke is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and blue for an instant counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or higher. So the majority of spells your opponents are going to play in Limited are going to be 1, 2, and 3 mana. But their bombs almost universally will be 4 mana or higher. So if you treat this just as a removal spell for bombs, then this is a really good card for you in Limited. Dimir Informant. Now I know you're like, whoa, I thought this was an Izzet video. Well, it is, but these are cards that you can slot very easily into your Izzet deck without changing its mana base and will synergize with Jumpstart. For example, this one's 3 CMC, 2 colorless and a blue. You're running blue anyways, right? You get a 1/4 human rogue that enters the battlefield and you get to surveil 2, populating your graveyard with Jumpstart cards that you can use as virtual card advantage. And you get a 1/4 on the board to help gum up the board. If we learned anything from the previous formats, is that 1/4s for 3 are really good for slowing down the game. Devious Cover-Up is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, and 2 blue for an instant counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it. Instead of putting it in its owner's graveyard, you may shuffle up to 4 target cards from your graveyard into your library. Great way for you to get back some of the cards that you discarded to Jumpstart, but didn't necessarily have a way to interact with in your graveyard. while hopefully time walking an opponent. Unexplained Disappearance is 2 CMC, 1 colorless and a blue for an instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Surveil 1. This is just a great tempo play. Cheap, economic way to disrupt your opponent's board state. Watcher in the Mist is 5 CMC, 3 colorless, blue, blue for a 3/4 spirit with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, Surveil 2. So getting a big evasive flyer for 5 mana is always good. Cloud Reader Spirit is something that you're going to want to put in your deck anytime you think you're running blue mana. And now let's take a look at the uncommons. Beacon Bolt is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, blue and a red for a sorcery. It deals damage to target creature equal to the total number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. It also has Jumpstart. I love this card because you're getting a removal spell that is a payoff for you doing what your deck wants to do in the first place that you can use twice. Great card. Beam Splitter Mage is 2 CMC, a blue and a red for a 2/2 Vidalcan Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Beam Splitter Mage, if you control one or more other creatures that spell could target, choose one of those creatures. Copy that spell. The copy targets the chosen creature. So I like this guy with the maximum velocity, maximum altitude. They're reprinting Sure Strike. He's going to play really well with that. There are limited options as to whether or not you're going to get real value off of this guy. But if you have those in your deck anyways, then he's going to just increase the value of those cards whenever he's on the board. We Dragonauts is being reprinted. It's 3 CMC, 1 colorless, blue and a red for a 1/3 fairy wizard with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Once again, getting you payoffs for just storming off in your turn and casting lots of instants and sorceries. Chemist's Insight is 4 CMC, 3 colorless and a blue for an instant. Draw 2 cards. It has Jumpstart. So this card is just really powerful. You're getting slightly overcosted concentration, but you get to do it twice. You're paying 8 mana to draw 4 cards, discard 1. That's still really, really good and limited. Electrostatic Field is 2 CMC, 1 colorless and a red for a 0/4 wall with Defender. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Just great additional value for the cards that you're going to be using anyways. Smeli-Ward Minotaur is 3 CMC, 2 colorless and a red for a 2/3 Minotaur Warrior. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target creature an opponent controls can't block this turn. This is great additional value for the instant and sorcery spells you're playing anyways. He's not stellar on his own, but he's a welcome option when you're just looking to fill out your mana curve. Invert and Invent. Invert is 1 hybrid Izzet for an instant. Switch the power and toughness of each of up to 2 target creatures. An interesting combat trick to be sure. And then Invent is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, blue and a red for an instant. Search your library for an instant and or sorcery card, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Invent is a great payoff for this deck, allowing you to get card advantage and get the exact answers you need. Invert is just a solid combat trick, so this is going to be right at home in this strategy. Crackling Drake is 4 CMC, 2 blue, 2 red, for a star 4 Drake with flying. Its power is equal to the total number of instant or sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Great, sizable, evasive flyer that's a payoff for you doing what you're going to do anyways, in addition to replacing itself. Overall, 4-star card. 4 out of 5 stars for this deck. League Guild Mage is 2 CMC, a blue and a red for a 2/2 human wizard. You could pay 3 colorless and a blue and tap her to draw a card, or you could pay X and a red to tap her, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control with converted mana cost X. You may choose new targets for that copy. This card's stellar, absolutely amazing, allowing you to do ridiculous shenanigans, copying your removal spells, copying your combat tricks, and if you don't have anything to play, she's just a great mana dump for you to get card advantage later on. Overall, really solid card. Murmuring Mystic is 4 CMC, 3 colorless and blue for a 1/5 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue bird illusion creature token with flying. Great payoff, allowing you to turn all of your instants and sorceries into damage over time. Goblin Cratermaker is 2 CMC, 1 colorless and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior. You can pay 1 colorless and sack him and choose one. He deals either 2 damage to target creature or destroy target colorless non-land permanent. There's not going to be many artifacts in this format, but having a bear that when he's no longer relevant in the combat math, you can sacrifice to either finish a creature off or just act as an outright removal spell, is a solid option overall. Lava Coil is going to be absolute premium removal in this format. It's only 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a red for a sorcery. It deals 4 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead, allowing you to get value off of a removal spell and prevent your opponents from being able to do stuff with it in their graveyard. Great card. Inescapable Blaze is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, red for an instant. This spell cannot be countered and it deals 6 damage to any target. So this is a good card because it makes it so that the Dimir decks, mirror matches, they can't counter this. You can use this to finish your opponents off. You can use it as removal. You can use it to get rid of a planeswalker. So overall, it's very versatile and a really solid card for you to put in your deck overall. Selective Snare is X and a blue for a sorcery. Return X target creatures of the creature type of your choice to their owner's hand. This is a really good card. It's a great board wipe for your opponent's tokens, but at the same time, it's a great way for you to get a 2-for-1, 3-for-1 tempo play. And worst case scenario, you just pay 1 and a blue for a sorcery speed dissipate on your opponent's creature. There's almost no downside. Wand of Vertebrae is 1 colorless mana for an artifact. You can tap it to put the top card of your library into your graveyard. You can pay 2 colorless, tap it, and exile it to shuffle up to 5 target cards from your graveyard into your library. So this is a great way for you to get pseudo card advantage for only 1 mana. If you're looking to sort of push the tempo in your deck and populate your graveyard quickly, this is a fine card to do so. Enhanced Surveillance is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a blue for an enchantment. You may look at an additional 2 cards each time you surveil. Exile it and shuffle your graveyard back into your library. So Surveil plays so well with this jumpstart mechanic. You should be doing a lot of it if at all possible. In fact, let's take a look at some of the cards that you could get real value off of this. Sinister Sabotage is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, blue for an instant counter target spell and surveil 1. Great way for you to late game counter your opponent's bombs before they have a chance to even resolve. Night Veil Sprite is 2 CMC, 1 colorless and a blue for a 1/2 fairy rogue with flying. Whenever it attacks, surveil 1. So this is great. Evasive threat that's going to get you virtual card advantage and help you populate your graveyard over the course of the game. City Watch Sphinx is 6 CMC, 5 colorless and a blue for a 5/4 flying Sphinx. Whenever it dies, surveil 2. This is very much akin to Horizon Scholar. Anytime you can get a 5/4 evasive body and limited, that's typically a good card. Thoughtbound Phantasm is 1 blue mana for a 2/2 spirit with defender. Whenever you surveil, put a +1/+1 counter on him. As long as he has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on him, he can attack as though he didn't have defender. So this guy is really solid in the fact that you're getting a 2/2 for 1 mana that's going to gum up the board. But as you surveil throughout the game, and you should do a lot of surveilling if at all possible, then you're going to get additional value, turning him into a 3/3, a 4/4, and eventually a 5/5 beater for only 1 blue mana. And the rares, you're not going to see as many of, but typically are going to be absolute bombs. Firemind's Research is 2 CMC, a blue and a red for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on it. You could pay 1 colorless and a blue, remove 2 charge counters to draw a card. Or you could pay 1 colorless and a red, remove 5 charge counters, and it deals 5 damage to any target. Getting you repeatable card draw, repeatable removal, maybe even finishing your opponent off, just as an additional benefit from you doing what your deck's going to do anyways. Niv-mizzet Paron is 6 CMC, 3 red, 3 blue, for a 5/5 legendary dragon wizard with flying, and he cannot be countered. Whenever you draw a card, he deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. I like this particularly in this deck because you're going to be doing so many instants or sorceries. You're going to be drawing a ton of cards to replace them, and that's the most powerful effect here. You also get the incidental value of dealing 1 damage to any target as you go through this process. This is a great way to really help this deck storm off. Powerhouse card in this deck. Runaway Steamkin is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a red for a 1/1 elemental. Whenever you cast a red spell, if he has fewer than 3 +1/+1 counters on him, put a +1/+1 counter on him. Then you can remove 3 +1/+1 counters from him to add 3 red mana. Technically, you can run this in Boros, but I wouldn't. Honestly, this screams Izzet to me, just getting you more fuel to help you storm off continuously throughout a turn. Expansion and Explosion. Expansion is 2 Izzet mana for an instant. Copy target instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. You may choose new targets for that copy. Just a great way for you to copy an opponent's removal spell, copy an opponent's counter spell to counter their counter, copy your own removal spell. You're going to get a ton of value off of this card. And then Explosion is Fireball's Revelation. It's X blue, red for an instant that deals X damage to any target, and target player draws X cards, allowing you to just replenish your hand in one fell swoop, and at the same time nix your opponent's best card off the board, or just nix them off the board entirely. Drowned Secrets is 2 CMC, 1 colorless and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a blue spell, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Now, at first blush, this looks at like just another mill card, sort of a pseudo Jace's Erasure. But the secret tech of this card is not to target your opponent, but to target yourself and populate your graveyard. On the flip side, because there are so many decks who are going to be specifically looking to populate their graveyard, this is a possible alternate win condition, allowing you to force them to put their last few cards into their graveyard and mill themselves out. Ionize is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, blue and a red for an instant. Counter target spell. It deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. Just a fine way for you to potentially time walk your opponent late game and get a shock in the process, potentially putting them in position to be finished off on your next turn. Quasi Duplicate is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, blue for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. It also has Jumpstart. So one of the dangers of building a Spellslinger deck in Limited is that you're not going to populate your board in the process. You're going to be so worried about, casting instants and sorceries, your board state will be weakened. This is a way for you to get around that. A clever way at that, allowing you to populate your board but still get triggers on all your instant and sorcery based abilities. Erratic Cyclops is 4 CMC, 3 colorless, and a red for a 0/8 Cyclops Shaman with Trample. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the spell's converted mana cost. So this guy wants you to storm off. He wants you to play lots of instants and sorceries in a single turn and then just trample right on over your opponents. Risk Factor is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a red for an instant. Target opponent may have risk factor deal 4 damage to them. If that player doesn't, you draw 3 cards. It also has Jumpstart. So this is very reminiscent of Browbeat. And if you only typically play Commander, then you're going to think, oh, Browbeat, that card sucks. But in a format where you only have 20 life and there's only one opponent, and if you've been able to effectively pressure their life total before you wind up casting this, this is very consistently a good card draw spell. Experimental Frenzy is 4 CMC, 3 colorless, and a red for an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. You can't play cards from your hand. You can pay 3 colorless and a red to destroy Experimental Frenzy. Now, on the surface, this looks risky. You're playing something that allows you to cantrip off the top of your deck and potentially storm off that way, but that obviously is going to really hurt when you hit that second land in that process. The secret tech is Jumpstart, allowing you to populate your graveyard with Jumpstart cards, or if you already have Jumpstart cards, discarding from your hand to activate the Jumpstart cards from your graveyard. And then the cards you've discarded from your hand, you can Jumpstart those as well, allowing you to get a ton of potential card advantage off of this. Risky, absolutely, because it's a little situational. It takes some setup. But when it goes off, man, that's going to be some magical Christmas land. Mission Briefing is 2 blue for an instant, Surveil 2. You then choose an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. If that card would be put into the graveyard this turn, instead exile it. Just good value, allowing you to get back a removal spell, allowing you to get pseudo card advantage with Surveil. Overall, just a solid card. Run it in this deck, run it in the Dimir deck, run it in anything that has blue. Narcombia is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a blue for a 1/1 illusion with flying. If this card is put into your graveyard from your library, you may put it onto the battlefield. So this is fine for you to throw into your deck if you happen to come across one in, say, sealed, or if it's middle of the pack pick in draft. You're going to be doing so much Surveil in this deck that there's a pretty good chance you'll be able to get this out for free. And lastly, the Mythics. Ral, the Izzet Viceroy. He's 5 CMC, 3 colorless, blue, and a red for a legendary planeswalker with a starting loyalty of 5. You could +1 him to look at the top 2 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. You can -3 him. He deals damage to target creature equal to the total number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. And then his -8 is you get an emblem. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target and you draw 2 cards. Planeswalkers are always good in limited. This guy's no exception. He plays exceptionally well into the mechanics this deck is built around. He's going to be an absolute bomb every time. Arclight Phoenix is 4 CMC, 3 colorless, and a red for a 3/2 Phoenix with flying haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn, return Arclight Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, more often than not, this is going to be underwhelming. It's just going to be 3/4 fly haste for 4. That's still good enough to run in limited. That said, on the turns where you get to really pop off and fire off 3 spells, this is going to push through an extra 3 damage from your graveyard, which isn't bad either. Dream Eater is obviously a Dimir card, but this card does so much, and you're running the mana to put in your deck anyways. It's 6 CMC, 4 colorless, blue for a 4/3 Nightmare Sphinx with flash and flying. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 4, and you may return target non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. Dang! This just does it all. This is a powerhouse card. If you see this in a pack, snatch it up. You're going to be in blue no matter what. Thousand Year Storm is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, blue and a red for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant and sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this is going to hurt a little bit in limited. You're taking a turn off on turn 6, no less. But that said, you're setting yourself up for what could potentially be a truly spectacular turn 7. So part of me wants to say don't run it, but another part of me is like, but how cool will it be when it goes off? Play at your own risk. Guilds of Ravnica is obviously built around the 2-color guild combinations. That said, a lot of the guild mechanics synergize very well together, and there's going to be a gate in each and every booster pack, allowing you to get mana fixing pretty easily. Not to mention the new locket cards that are going to be available at common, allowing you to get more mana fixing, and makes it very easy for you to splash a 3rd color. I imagine this is going to very much so be a 3 to 4 color deck meta. And because of that, you cannot overlook the colors that can be integrated with the ones you're running. For example, Discovery and Dispersal. Obviously Dimir cards, but you're running blue mana anyways. If you can splash a black mana, or even if you're just running Discovery for blue, this is a solid card. Paying only 2 mana for a sorcery, surveil 2, and then draw a card. And then, if you do manage to splash black, you get Dispersal, which is an instant. Each opponent returns a non-land permanent they control with the highest converted mana cost among the permanents they control to its owner's hand, and then discards a card. Connive is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, and 2 Dimir, which you can cast as 2 colorless blue. For sorcery, gain control of target creature with power 2 or less. That's a big swing if you're stealing your opponent's Tristani, if you're stealing your opponent's Aurelia. There are a lot of creatures that have low power but big abilities. And not only are you removing it from their side of the board, you're populating your own. And then if you manage to splash some black mana, you can cast Concoct, which is 3 colorless mana, a blue and a black for sorcery, surveil 3, then return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Integrity and Intervention. Integrity is 1 Izzet mana, which you can cast for just 1 red. For an instant, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Combat tricks are always nice to have. Plays really well with your Beam Splitter Mage. And then, if you manage to splash some white mana, you can do Intervention, which is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, a blue, and a red for an instant. It deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Lightning Helix would absolutely be a welcome addition in this deck. And then we have Response, which is 2 hybrid Boros, which can be cast as 2 red for an instant, deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. That's just premium removal. It's snatch up real quick and put it in your deck. Resurgence is great if you can splash some white as well. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this content, click that subscribe button to get access to all our latest videos. And if you're looking to pre-order your Guilds of Ravnica booster box, check out our Amazon affiliate link in the description below. This has been Metagame Mastery. Peace!